Hello friends, believe it or not, this video is being recorded as we have rounded the corner from September into October, which means there are only a few weeks left until the presidential election of 2024 in the United States of America. And in previous cycles of election years, I would have typically said that means the madness is almost over with. You are almost through this. But what we have noticed for maybe 3 presidential elections in a row is what happens afterwards is just as unpredictable and potentially as unsettling as everything that leads up to it. That has been the point of this video series, is trying to get us in the right mindset, to brace us, to prepare us, to walk well with Jesus, to not be surprised at the difficulty of these times, and to not get sucked in to all of the hatred and vitriol that seems to be infecting our country presidential election by presidential election. So again, I'm just going to ask, how are you doing? How are you faring through all of this lead up? How are you preparing for these last few weeks and whatever fallout is going to happen afterwards? I had mentioned in our last video, we put a lot of our attention and focus, even a call out to the church in the United States of America to be about soul care, that we should be local assemblies who gather together to care for one another's souls. And I know there's a collective eye roll going on out there, and a lot of my more staunch friends in the faith would say that's exactly the opposite we need to be doing right now. We don't want to coddle one another. We don't want to coddle our people. We don't want to tell them everything is going to be okay and put kids' gloves on and handle with care. No, we need to be prepping people for this great apocalyptic battle that is about to happen, and the end of all things is about to take place. And please don't mishear me. I am not saying that there isn't such a thing on the prophetic timetable as the end of all things, as some kind of climactic conclusion that is going to divide the world until Jesus comes back. I guess my more discerning question is this it? Because I feel like a lot of bad behavior in the name of Christ, in the name of the church, and trying to be faithful to God for this end time event, I believe a lot of that is being used poorly, to just let a lot of anger and a lot of aggression out, and to treat people like they are absolutely wrong and we are absolutely right. And if you, even in the faith communities, if you don't see it our way, then you're actually serving the enemy. The problem is these kinds of things can come and go. And afterwards, you might actually be doing more harm to the souls of people and to our witness for Jesus by using difficult circumstances, associating with them with the apocalypse, not that they won't be associated with the apocalypse, but then using that for your own bad behavior. That's what I'm calling people out on. I have no problem with the church being a prophetic voice in this world. That is part of what the church is trying to do. To me, this is more like trying to compare ourselves to what it must have been like for St. Augustine to minister to people and to lead churches during the fall of the Roman Empire. To them, that must have looked like the end of the world. And it very well could have looked like everything is going wrong. Darkness is covering the land as this barbarian horde is on their way to to do their worst and to undermine all of civilization that we've known. They could have used that as an opportunity for the church to become very militant, and they didn't. What must it have been like in the days of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, when this Nazism is starting to rise in your home country and more of society is getting pulled towards anti-biblical views of things and trying to get the church to endorse those same kinds of things. And if you don't, then you are seen as a pawn and as a tool of the enemy, and you are actually seen as worthless to them. What must it have been like to try and lead the church through that time period? I see a lot of echoes, a lot of mirrors, a lot of repeat sort of imagery going on in our own day and age. I think this is about reminding ourselves what it means to truly be prophetic. I'm talking about what was it like for John the Baptizer to speak truth to the power of Herod? What was it like for Jesus to speak truth, not just to his own religious communities, but to the powers of Rome? What was it like for all of the biblical prophets of old, whether you're talking about your Jeremiahs or your Isaiahs or your Amoses, to be able to speak against the powers that govern their own country, the powers that are governing the countries around them, whether Babylon or Assyria or Egypt or Edom or all of these people, and to say, you know what? You guys are engaging in ungodly behavior, and there will be a consequence for that. I'm totally in favor of the church being a prophetic voice. Unfortunately, what I see happening in our country at this time is we're not being prophetic, we're being partisan. Partisan says, I have lots of negative things to say about the opposite party of mine, but I don't see anything wrong with my own party, with my own candidate. And that, my friends, is not prophetic. If you believe that there is one candidate in this election that is above reproach, and that there is one party in this election cycle that is doing everything right and is completely righteous and is not doing anything wrong, if you are actually making excuses for your party when you are calling out the opposite party for doing exactly the same things that your party is doing or has done as well, if you're playing the victim role or the aggressor role when before you were in the opposite role, that is not prophetic speech. That's partisanship. And that, my friends, is just as wrong and just as evil. And it plays into the hands of the enemy more so than saying, this is a time for us to care for one another and to support one another and to continue to be loving and gentle to people on all sides. I think part of our call is to look for a common good, beyond partisanship. Okay, what is actually good for society right now? What is good in terms of people's health, people's safety, people's ability to have shelter, have resources? What are causing the problems and the gaps in care? How are we going to get better at them? Are there agencies in place that we can support? Are there things that the church needs to be doing to fill those areas of support? Don't start picking and choosing like, well, I would support this, but it's Republican, I can't therefore do it. Or I would support that, but it's Democrat, therefore I can't do it. Stop worrying about the partisanship of everything. Stop acting like one party is wholly right or one party is wholly wrong, and start looking at individual issues and work towards individual issues for the common person, for the common family, for the common good, whether people are Christian or non-Christian, whether they are atheist or Muslim or Buddhist. How can we as citizens in this country serve the needs of every citizen? And how can the church be a loving testimony and a loving agent that is providing help instead of just standing on the sidelines, casting stones and casting them selectively. I'm going to ask us to sort of churn inward and to look at ourselves. How are we escalating or de-escalating this situation? How are we helping others who are sort of navigating in false or overly inflated ways where they can only see the problems of the other party? Do they need us to point some problems out in their party? Do we need to point the fingers at ourselves sometimes and say, you know what, this is where we're all getting it wrong? Be a little bit more humble and a little bit more gracious, and don't stop being prophetic by any means. There is so much ungodliness happening at the federal and state and local levels of government, but there is also ungodliness happening in society, in culture, in neighborhoods, in our own homes, and we just turn a blind eye to it. Keep being prophetic, but do so without getting sucked into partisanship. We are in that final kind of journey towards an election. I have a few more videos that I would like to help us frame our thinking and put some better practices in place and be a little bit more honest and hopeful and gracious to ourselves and to one another. But this is a journey, and again, I don't think it's going to end in early November. So please, I pray that you are staying well in your mind and in your body and in your spirit. And I look forward to seeing you on this screen or in person, waiting for that next video. So until then, may the peace of God be with you. Amen.